So our recruiting process is quite a pain in the butt, but it gives a better likelihood that the person is going to last and be of value to the client. So that's why passion, I think, is a really important element for us, that I want all of our team members, back to your question, when they're waking up in the morning, they're looking forward to coming to work, and they don't have that common TGIF where it's like, I'm looking forward to going to the weekends.
Yeah.
I want our employees to look forward to Monday. And that obviously is not always the easiest thing to do. So we're always looking for really creative ways around leveraging that kind of passion mindset.
You're listening to The Pivotal Leader, where modern leaders talk about the moments that shifted their organizational cultures and pivoted their teams to success. Welcome to the Pivotal Leader podcast. I'm Gina Trimarco, Chief Results Officer of Pivot 10 Results, a strategy and training company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results. Each week on The Pivotal Leader, I interview inspirational leaders who know how to positively impact their customers, employees, and brand through culture building. But before we jump into this episode, here's a pivotal fact. Your survive versus thrive ability hinges on your investment in your employees and your customers. If you don't provide meaningful, purposeful training and growth opportunities for your employees and results for your customers, well, they just might leave you and head straight for your competition. If you're looking for fresh ways to keep your stakeholders engaged, shoot me an email at gina@pivot10.com or visit our website at pivot10.com. In this episode of The Pivotal Leader, I interviewed Jay Feitlinger, serial entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of StringCan Interactive, a strategic online marketing agency in Scottsdale, Arizona, with a regional office in Paris, France. I will be asking him about that for sure. Since StringCan's launch in 2010, Jay oversees strategy and vision, building culture that makes going into work something his team looks forward to, recruiting additional team members to help exceed clients' goals, leading the team, and allocating where StringCan invests time and money. One of Jay's proudest accomplishments is earning Phoenix's Best Places to Work award on 2 occasions, recognizing StringCan for its dedication to its staff's personal and professional development. Practicing what he preaches around helping companies stay focused, Jay has positioned StringCan to work with multi-location, family-oriented companies such as swim schools or gymnastic schools with their inbound marketing and online advertising needs. This focus has allowed StringCan to position itself as a leading authority in addressing the complex structure around multi-location online marketing needs, especially with local internet search. This commitment has earned multi-year contracts with companies such as The Little Gym with over 250 locations and Game Truck with over 175 locations. Through years of experience, trial and error, success and failure, heartache and joy, Jay has found that our professional and personal lives are not in fact separate entities. In fact, it's only when our home lives thrive that our businesses can be free to thrive too. And this is a truth that every entrepreneur deserves to hear. In 2015, Jay took the lessons he has learned from his last 8 businesses and created a 4-day family retreat to help entrepreneurs and business executives who desire more out of their family lives. The results of this process helped Jay with his own family issues, and he has shared the process with others. He was inspired to have his first book published, Family 2.0, Harness Business Principles to Reboot Your Family in 4 days, which focuses on helping entrepreneurs strengthen their families and in turn strengthen their businesses. So let's dive into this episode, listen and learn from Jay Feitlinger. Jay, welcome to the Pivotal Leader podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Excited.
I'm excited. The last time I saw you, well, the first and last time I saw you was in Las Vegas.
Of all places.
Yeah, of all places. We probably
gotta keep it there.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about it, but that's where I saw you last. We'll leave it at that. I can't create some intrigue. The first question I have for you is Paris, France. That was in your intro. It's like he has offices in Arizona and Paris. I'm like, I need to know what's up with Paris. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's an odd one. So I guess, on that, I've always had a desire to have more than one location for our business. We, like most agencies, find that the closer we can connect with our clients, the better we're going to do in that relationship. And I just find that in person is so much better than, Skype and Zoom and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so we had a couple large international clients. For example, one of them was the World Trade Centers Association. They have over 1 million members in their network. And I was speaking at one of their conferences in India, of all places. And they were one of the proponents recommending that, gosh, if we had an agency like you all here, somewhere in Europe, it'd be really beneficial for us versus having to, have you fly over and whatnot. And at that point in time, the gentleman who was running our Scottsdale office, his wife actually just happened to get a job offer for Paris. Around the exact same time, we were analyzing, how would we set up a new office internationally? And we agreed to a 6-month test with him moving out there with his wife. And that test performed extremely well. And so about 2 years ago, we officially established our brand there in Paris, opening up an office. We have numerous employees out there. And I unfortunately have to travel out there sometimes to spend time in Paris with the team.
It's rough.
But yeah, it's really interesting. So now, we have the benefit of being able to kind of support clients on a global level.
That's interesting because, this podcast, one of the reasons why I started this podcast was to address culture, organizational culture. But a lot of times when we talk to companies that actually do business globally, that's a whole nother kind of thing to talk about culture-wise. So I'd be curious to hear from you what it's like working in different cultures and how you find that and how you adapt to that.
Yeah, I think, I can speak to it kind of in two different ways. We have tried the solo, agency employee working out of various different parts of the US, and they're not really inside of an office with our team. And more often than not, those have not performed well. And the really only difference I can see is that they weren't surrounded by other team members who are day in, day out, living, kind of our company values. Mm-hmm. And that was actually one of the biggest challenges that I had was when we were analyzing opening up an office somewhere in Europe. I was really stressing about how would we be able to replicate our strong culture we have in our Arizona office, international. And that was the reason why we were so delayed on making a decision. And what I found is by moving somebody that was already quite invested in our company, had been with me for well over a year, he was able to carry over a lot of our strong values at the location there. But you got to be agile. When I went out there my first time for a visit with the team and the clients out there, companies especially in Paris, in France area, just run very differently than they do in the States. So we had to come up with a model of how do we embrace our strong culture around our team, our values and whatnot with our clients, but still yet be flexible that it's appropriate for that, local market. Mm-hmm. So, we definitely have morphed. I mean, again, if you visit that website that we have in our France office, the actual language and the story is quite different than we have in the States, because what words resonate out there is different than what resonates here.
Right.
But no matter what, though, we still, have a lot of the similarities with things like meeting with our team. Everyone's got a voice, having the team really invested in kind of where we're at versus where we're going. They're really involved in our annual planning. All those elements are still kept within our various different teams. So the culture is still strong. But if you visited that office versus our office here in Arizona, it would feel a little different.
What are those differences like? I'm assuming, most companies have to have really strong core values, right? Your values aren't going to change, but what is different between the two offices from a culture and feel?
So I would say probably the biggest difference is, again, how at the pace that the clients move. So in the States, again, being kind of more general here, because obviously every client is a little different, but in the States, we find that the clients move a little quicker. They've done their research, they know what they're looking for, and when they're contacting us or we're speaking with them, it's just a lot clearer regarding their timing of when they want to move forward. Mm-hmm. What's unique about what I found with the clients out of Paris is it's much more about a marriage versus dating. So a lot of times clients out there, they want to just really spend time with you over a period of months, just to make sure that there would be a good long-term benefits working together. So we have to kind of adjust our hustle, go get 'em attitude a little bit out there versus we do in the States, because it wouldn't, I don't think, be, taken as well as it does when we're out here. So that's probably, I would say, the main difference is just the pace that we have to work with on our clients. But besides that, I would say the way we talk and think and work is quite similar. We're very consultative. We really invested time talking with the clients about, where they're at versus where they want to go. And then we basically customize our offerings based on our expertise and how we can really help them move the needle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very similar on both teams.
There was something in your bio that talked about focus on building a culture that makes going into work something your team looks forward to. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, so I'm probably near ADHD. I'm very, very big into things being done in a certain way, but I just love change. So I'm probably in like the ultimate job where the internet marketing landscape, literally every day I wake up, there's something new going on. A new platform, a new way to do marketing, et cetera. And I just love that. So the challenge that comes with that is as you're constantly having to essentially reinvent yourself and modifying your process to be agile to support the client's needs, it often can have some negative elements to that. Again, most people don't like change. People like to follow a process that's been proven. And when you're constantly, mixing things up, it causes sometimes stress to certain personalities. And I think, typical entrepreneurs, you just run through those ups and downs, that roller coaster ride. And I just find that if you're not passionate about what you're doing, when things are at their low points, those challenges become major headaches. Mm-hmm. Whereas with me, with this organization that I started about 7 years ago, we've had a lot of both ups and downs. But when we have those downs, I'm excited to actually overcome that hurdle. Mm-hmm. Because it's an area that I just love what I do. So when it comes to my team, I'm really, really selective around that, where I want to make sure that people that we bring on are passionate about, the vision that we have, our values, but also about the clients that they're supporting. And if they don't really believe in our clients' product or services, I don't see how they can do an effective job marketing them. So our interviewing recruiting process is quite a pain in the butt. But it gives a better likelihood that the person is going to last and be of value to the client. So that's why passionate, I think, is a really important element for us, that I want all of our team members, back to your question, when they're, waking up in the morning, they're looking forward to coming to work, and they don't have that common, TGIF where it's like, I'm looking forward to going to the weekends. Yeah. I want our employees to look forward to Monday. And that obviously is not always the easiest thing to do. So we're always looking for really creative ways around leveraging that kind of passion mindset.
What does your recruiting process look like to attract talent that fits your culture?
So I think a couple things that we do there. Again, I don't think it's overly unique. It's just works really well for us. First and foremost, we invest a good amount of time for every position, even if they're one that we're already have hired for, where we get the key team members that would be working with that person closest, and we go through and discuss key accountabilities for that role, expectations we have for them. And basically, we build out a profile, essentially like a persona or avatar for that ideal person. We actually give them a name, a picture, trying to avoid obviously any kind of HR issues there. But we really do a lot of that. And then once we have that done, then we basically write up a very, very clear job description. And then because we have that profile in place, then we basically figure out exactly where those people are and then basically market that position to them. So for example, if this position is ideal for a recent graduate that has a marketing internship background, whatnot, we'll reach out to, the marketing school at a university, and they basically provide the details to them. So that way the candidates that apply more often than not are already kind of self-qualifying them with that. And then from there, we do a pretty good screening process. Now, again, here, our process for that phone screening is less about the skills and more about the culture. So I would say we're on that first call, it's 85% focused on culture fit to make sure that they actually have the right kind of DNA that would work well with our team and our clients. And then from there, we do some online assessments with personality tests like Myers-Briggs, type of skill assessments and whatnot, or colors or TTI, whatever it might be for that role, as well as we do kind of a skill assessment as well. And then we have the person come in and do a group interview. So that way various different team members could meet with them. We find that to be very effective because everyone notices something different at individual people. And so when we have more than one person in that room, we have different people responsible for different aspects of that interview. And then what we've done, actually, I thought was really smart, was my recommendation, but about a year ago, the team flip-flopped this, and actually I'm the last person to interview, Whereas before, when the company was in the growth mode, I was actually one of the first.
Mm-hmm.
We did it that way before about 2.5 years ago, because often what would happen is I just would, in my gut, know if the person's going to gel or not with our team and our clients. But then the team would get this person and I'm already kind of sold on them. So it makes it harder for them to properly interview. So now we actually flip-flop it. So they have to go through our 2-week-long lengthy process. And by the time they get to me, it's more just a formality.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the last couple of hires that we've had that we followed that process with, it has been extremely well. So the team now is kind of bought in on that person before I even meet with them, which is kind of cool.
I do something similar with one of our companies we also have an improv comedy theater in school, and I'm pretty hands off. That it's pretty much run by an entire team and not me. But when it comes to bringing on new performers, I go to every single audition. That's where I have to put my finger on everything, is on that. I want to see them perform, but I'm not part of the process as far as the audition process. Everybody else weighs in on it and does evaluations for that performer. And I'm like you, I'm the formality at the end. They decide if that person should be part of the culture.
Yeah, I love that improv idea. I'm actually going to steal that, I think. I think being able to think on your feet quickly is important. A challenge that we've had that I'm still working through is we try to give the person a test before we hire them to see how well they would do. But because they haven't worked with our clients or our team before, and we're really respectful of their time, because obviously they're interviewing more than with our company. Obviously that can be very time consuming. So we've been coming up with these little tests that we basically have them do a little bit of research and come in and just kind of show us, kind of give us a taste of what they would do. But the improv idea actually could be genius, because you really don't require a lot of prep work, I would imagine, for that.
This is something that we do as a training company and working with our clients. There are a variety of ways that you can use improv. I use improv in interviews. I use improv in orientations. You can use this in an interview process even, especially if you bring somebody in for a group interview. Like, I like bringing people in when I'm recruiting to, like you, mingle with the whole group. And I want the group to observe them. And you could bring in several candidates at the same time and do kind of a mingler, and then have them do some improv exercises. You will learn so much about someone in 10 minutes from a couple different improv exercises. You will quickly see how fast they react on their feet. Are they inhibited? Are they self-conscious? Are they really confident? Are they kind of cocky and take over the room because they want to show you how great they are on their feet? And they're not even thinking that way. It's just that behavior naturally and organically happens. And like within 10 minutes, you know exactly what you're dealing with.
I love that.
Yeah, we could talk. We could talk about that more offline. Give you some ideas on that.
I would love it.
Or I can come to Arizona.
Let's do that. The nice dry heat.
The dry heat, yeah. So that is a really good way. That was one reason we grew our company. I was working corporately. I had trained in improv many years ago in Chicago, and it was more of a hobby. And then I brought in many companies back, to do customer service training with my staff. And they used improv. And I wanted to see how improv was used in business before we actually started using it ourselves as a service. And I quickly was able to realize, oh my gosh, we have people why is this person the first line talking to customers? They can't even talk to people. And that's what you can learn from that type of training.
Very cool.
Okay, so we got off on a little tangent there. See, I told you that. Yeah, entrepreneurs. We're like, what? What's over there? Look, silver.
Squirrel.
Okay, so we were talking about recruiting and that process. Let's talk about Phoenix's Best Places to Work Award, because I always love hearing about that. I know it's a process you go through and you apply and all that, but tell me a little bit more about how you got that recognition.
Yeah, I think this is one that I have to say I'm probably most proud of. One of our values we have is provide results, not awards. A common element for agencies is always going out there and trying to win that big client so you can win that big award. And it really does work from a credibility sales perspective. But I just find that the agencies that do that, they're really missing opportunities. A lot of the clients that we're focusing on more in that small to medium size or organizational size, yes, awards per se are important for credibility, but not really the most critical element of that. And so when the Best Places award opportunity came up, it was one that I was pretty excited about with our team. So it's one of those more legit awards. As you probably know, a lot of these awards out there, you honestly can just send out an email to a bunch of people and have them click a bunch of links. And now next thing you know, you're a top 10 agency.
I call it a popularity contest. That's why we don't even do it anymore. It's annoying.
And so did we. We basically, I created that value because last agency I was with, we constantly struggled with some of these really hard decisions. And so that value came from that, where I wanted to focus on driving results for ourselves and our clients and not focus on trying to win awards. So when we had an annual planning meeting about 3 years ago, a couple of our team members wanted to challenge that value because they felt like we were missing out on closing new potential great clients because we weren't focusing on awards. And I said, look, I just think they're a huge time suck. If we could pick an award that we think would be valuable for ourselves and our clients, I'm on board with that. And they came back and said, Best Places to Work award. I'm like, okay. So the downside of that, or the upside, however you want to look at it, is it's not really an award that I have control over. So once you get nominated for that kind of award, at least in Arizona, I'm not sure how other states do this or other cities do it. Basically, once you get nominated and you fill out that initial application and you provide all the contacts for your staff, then they email out the staff the survey and it's totally anonymous. And so then the staff, even if, again, I have a lot of friends that own companies and their employees tell them how much they love working there, then their attrition rate for staff leaving is so high. So clearly someone is not being honest.
Yeah.
And so as an entrepreneur, you always worry like, gosh, is my team just blowing smoke up my butt and just saying how much they love working with me and our team, or they really mean it? And so when we 2 years in a row got that, I was overjoyed with that because it told me that all the work that how much hard work we put into our company and our culture and the vision and whatnot was being embraced and appreciated by the staff. So that was kind of really what happened there is they submitted the response and, we got that 2 years in a row. And so it's been really exciting. And it's obviously helped us recruiting, but also clients love that award as well because, again, clients don't want to work with agencies that don't have people happy, and happy employees usually generate happy deliverables. So our clients love that we got that award. And so basically it tells them that they really picked a good company to work for. But I did, not that I manipulated the situation, but I definitely dissected it. So I tackled every single opportunity I have. I researched the companies that won in the past. I met with those owners and asked them about what they do with their culture. And I picked the elements that I thought would work well for us and made adjustments accordingly with everything from, how we do performance reviews to how we do celebrations, how we handle vacation time, how we handle one-on-ones. For example, I learned from one of my friends, he meets with every employee at least once a month. Luckily, we were a small enough company that I could afford that kind of time. But for about 2 years, about a year and a half, actually, I met with every employee every week for at least 15 minutes.
Wow.
Which obviously is extremely time consuming, but it became like the meeting that I personally loved the most, even more than meeting with new clients, because it made me feel very connected. So if and when we had problems, as every company does, I found that we're able to resolve those challenges a lot faster than we did before, because we had a stronger level of communication and trust inside the organization because of all those various different conversations. So, again, I think it's one of those awards that I constantly talk about because I'm really proud of it.
I think that that's great that you invested that time and, as you grow, that gets harder and harder. But I imagine that you can have other leaders do some similar things. I've seen that a lot with some of our clients from a consulting standpoint. The employees lose interest when they feel like they can't talk about what's going on or come to somebody with an issue. I've taken a lot of pride in having this truly open door that please come tell me what's going on, no matter what level you're at, because a lot of times managers are not sure how to solve the problem or don't want to bring the problem to me. They don't want it to look like they don't know how to solve the problem. And I think when you can stay pretty involved as the CEO of your company within reason, it just creates a different energy and a different culture.
Definitely agree. I think, again, back to the whole value part, I think this ties in what you just talked about there. As one of our values is bring solutions, not problems. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that value is, I didn't realize this till again about 2 years ago, is the team members felt like, well, that's one of our values. I can't come to Jay and complain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to your point there have been numerous situations a couple years ago where I had no idea I had some pretty toxic situations on my hands.
Yeah.
And when I asked the team members why they didn't come to me sooner, they're like, well, I just wanted to follow our values and not come to you complaining. I didn't have a solution. So that scared me. And so I started significantly changing up the dialogue I had with my team. So for example, instead of me meeting with them and talking about, hey, what problems do you have? Or, why are you fighting with that person? Or why is this client having issues with you? Instead, I just rephrase up the conversation and make them feel very comfortable. So, for example, I might say something like, what can I do to make your job easier? Or, what are some of the things that you think that we have issues with in this company that we need to focus on? Mm-hmm. And so I make it less about them feeling like they need to be on the defensive and more about, gosh, I really have a stake in this organization. I'm basically kind of a wantrepreneur or intrapreneur, however you want to word that. I'd love to be able to say, gosh, I helped the company address this opportunity or this problem because I brought it to whoever I need to bring it to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So again, I think communication is probably the area of our culture that I think is extremely strong. Again, we have problems like every company does, and we go ups and downs, but I feel like we get through them faster because of how open we are about communication.
You had mentioned where some companies, the employees say, oh, it's a great company, but it ends up they're really blowing smoke up the employers. And again, wrapping that back in, I think what happens is nobody wants to come right out and say there's problems. So they pretend that they're happy. And behind your back, that toxic situation grows until it implodes. And as a leader, if you're not 100% on top of it, I think that's where people get hurt.
Yeah, and I think there, to your point, though, is that, again, it takes some time. It's not overnight.
Right.
I'm not sure if you ever heard of a tool called Tiny Pulse.
No.
So, again, I was not aware how many challenges we had a few years ago. I thought everything was going great. The company was profitable. Our clients were happy. The team told me that they were happy. But when I kind of pulled back the layers of the onion, there was definitely a lot of tears going on there.
Wow.
And team members didn't feel, even though they trusted me a lot, they didn't seem comfortable to come and talk to me about some of their concerns. I think also because of our values. So I researched and found that tool, and it was a really good start. We did that for about 6 months, where every week that software emailed my entire staff and asked them one question. And it was some typical things like, are you happy? Or in 6 months from now, what changes do you want to see in the company? And it was all anonymous. And then every Tuesday, I got the answers to those questions.
Wow.
And it allowed me to see that I did have some problems in my organization. Like I had one person, I'm not even sure to this day who it was, but one person was very toxic. Every response was, I don't like this person, you should fire them kind of attitude. Nothing was ever about trying to solve the problem. I haven't gotten those responses in a long time. So luckily that person is no longer here. But again, I think you just got to find strategic ways to, build up that level of trust. And just some organizations, if you're too big or you don't have the time to meet with all individual people one-on-one, I think some of those online survey tools can be very effective.
And I just looked that up, Tiny Pulse. So I'll put that in the show notes. Now I'm really excited about checking that out. So that's tinypulse.com for anybody that's interested in looking at that. Thank you for that tip.
Sure.
I'd like to talk a little bit because we're just about at time, but I want to really talk. I know, right? It goes by so fast, and I keep promising I'll stick to 30 minutes. But I want to talk a little bit about your 4-day family retreat and about your book, because I think these are really important things, especially for any entrepreneur or any leader, any CEO that's a founder of a company. There's so much struggle in finding life balance. And I think that you've tried to work on that yourself and have created some services and products around that. So let's talk a little bit about that so people can learn more.
Yes, let me give you a little bit of background, maybe. That might help.
Yeah, that'd be great. Perfect.
Any questions you've got. So luckily, my wife, Rachel, I met her before I guess I became an entrepreneur. Do you remember the WorldCom Enron situation? So I was one of the sales managers for WorldCom many, many years ago before I owned my own company. And I did really, really well there. So I did a good job at saving up for my commissions and whatnot. But then obviously when the whole scandal happened and the company basically bankrupt essentially, that's when I realized, gosh, I have such little control over my destiny. And so I went ahead and basically created my first company. But I was dating, or I was actually engaged to my wife at that point in time. And then so since then, many years later, this is my 8th company that I've launched.
And she's still with you.
and she's still with me, and she seems to be happy. At least she tells me that. But, the benefit of that process is she's watched me go through some major highs and lows. I mean,
Yeah.
of my 8 companies, I would say 4 were pretty big wins and 4 were colossal failures. Basically, even at this point in time. But what I struggled with is, I was raised, hey, to be a good husband and a father, you got to provide for your family. And I was taught that providing for family means working long hours and making a lot of money. And so that's what I thought I needed to do. And I never thought differently. And so I worked and worked and worked. And the last couple of companies we have done quite well as an organization. But the more my companies did well, the worse my family life got. And I really wanted to stay married and I wanted to be part of my kids' lives. And so, my wife came to me a couple of years ago and basically made a very depressing statement that she felt like we were roommates. And that, I think any relationship you're in, hearing that from a husband or wife or partner, whatever, is not words you want to hear.
Yeah.
And then typical entrepreneur, I'm like, oh, I'll deal with it later. And I kind of buried that. And then my youngest daughter came to me one weekend and said, I really wish you would spend more time with me. And she was crying, and it was a pretty emotional day. So I'm like, okay, I better figure this out or this is not going to go well. And so what I did was I felt like a typical entrepreneur and analyzed like, oh, gosh, why do my businesses often perform so well? And or when I have problems, I know how to solve them within a second. Why can't I do that with my family? So I decided to treat my family like a business. And, I'm basically the CEO of this family and my wife's the COO. And I kind of thought about it that way. And I presented to her, what I do with my company every year with my employees with annual planning. And I was so excited about it. And she hated it, the idea. And I literally felt like even more depressed than I did when she told me that we were roommates.
Oh my gosh.
And when I kind of discussed that with her, basically her response initially was, we're not your employees. And I'm like, gosh, you're so right. So I basically, typical fashion for me, I just didn't want to give up. I felt like I had something there. And so I kind of retooled it over the next month and then came back to her and presented a kind of a new model and less about us, doing planning and meetings and workshops and whatnot, and more about let's take a family vacation that we're planning anyway and make it super fun. And then over a couple of days, let's just kind of work through all of this stuff that we're having challenges with, especially around communication and goals and chores and money and all the things that typical families have. And my wife was more on board with that. And we did that process a few months later with my wife and my 2 daughters. At that point in time, or younger, they were, 9 and 6 years old. And the experience was amazing. And so I posted on Facebook some pictures of the experience and the outcomes of what my daughters did with their planning and all this kind of fun stuff and the arts and craft projects. And then within the next few weeks, I had so many entrepreneurs reaching out to me, asking me to go to dinner and lunch. And basically, these were very impressive entrepreneurs that I always looked up to. And basically, the common theme from those conversations was, gosh, I'm having all these problems as well. And I felt better hearing that, but then I, of course, felt bad for them as I kind of walked them through my process. And then more and more people tried it and found big success there. And then a couple of the entrepreneurs really motivated me to saying, you really should consider writing a book about this. And that was a bucket list item of mine. But again, I was trying to practice what I preach with the family work-life balance stuff. I already had obviously numerous jobs and family and commitments with boards and whatnot. And I really didn't have time to do it. But I basically retooled my schedule and I was able to find a way every morning to carve out time to do that process. And about a year later, we got the book published. And since then, it's been going extremely well. So it's been pretty exciting.
And you have a retreat that goes along with it?
Yeah, so the concept behind it was, let me walk you through a process you should follow before, during, and after a 3 to 5 day family retreats. And you're doing this on your own, self-guided, so you don't have to have someone like me participate in it.
Okay.
Since then, I have had a couple families reach out that want me to do it. I'm considering that. I just think that ruins some of the intimacy by having even if you're close, having a third party there to facilitate. It's very different than business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in business, we often will hire facilitators so I can participate in the retreats. But I think when it comes to family, I just think you have to be super agile. And I think a third party coming in might threaten some of the family members. But basically, that's pretty much it. And then once the retreat is done, then basically you have a roadmap that you can follow for the next 6 to 12 months to keep kind of your family in sync. So the rebooting of your family was kind of the main focus of that process.
Wow, that's great. And now your wife loves it?
Yeah, I mean, we've done it now 2 years in a row. We're already planning our third one now. Actually, for this one, my wife and my daughters are planning more of it than I am.
Oh, cool.
Which is super exciting. And actually, the girls really look forward to it. For example, the first year, our theme was communication. That was our biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, the theme was money. I just didn't feel like our kids really understood the value of money. So I did a bunch of exercises around helping them understand the value and how to save up and wants versus needs. And so now we're kind of talking through, what are really the big gaps we have now. We're going to create the theme for next year around those topics.
Wow. Well, I think that you probably could turn this into a product as well from a retreat standpoint. And I get the intimacy piece, but I think people probably want time with you and your expertise. I'm just throwing that out there because I'm opinionated. You could still build in intimacy time for them and still help lead them.
Yeah. And I think to your point, so I've had enough people reach out. I've hosted now 2, let's call them family clinics, where basically I kind of presented my story for the first part of the presentation. And then I customized a couple of the worksheets from my book and that basically allowed them to in person do that in front of me with their partner, husband, wife, whatever it might be, however they defined family. And then basically we had a roundtable discussion around what they experienced and questions and concerns. And we just kind of talked it through.
Yeah.
I actually felt like a therapist was kind of interesting. And clearly I am not a therapist, but I've done this enough times that I usually have an anecdote on how to solve pretty much every kind of scenario around that. But that is where one of my goals is for 2018. I am looking to find a way to take this Family 2.0 book, the process, and then create some kind of program that either I could take it to the next level and or teach it more in person, either in a family situation and or group, and kind of go from there. But I'd love any advice or opinions you have. Very welcomed.
I think it's again, and you know this from a marketing standpoint and a sales standpoint, whenever people start coming to you repeatedly saying they want what you have, I'm always of the opinion you have to create it because people are asking for it. The demand is there. And I know as an entrepreneur, married to an entrepreneur, that can be pure hell sometimes.
That's crazy. Don't whammy me.
Yeah. And it's on my bucket list that eventually I'll never master it, but eventually we'll get better at this married to entrepreneur thing. But it has so many challenges to it. And I think there's a huge need for it from the many that I've spoken to. When you're married to an entrepreneur or there's 2 of you in that role, when you were telling the story about your wife, I have many times told my husband, I feel like we're roommates. So it resonates. And it's not like I hate him, but it's like, it is what it is. We're both so absorbed and it concerns me, right? Because it can run away and I've actually said to him as well, I go, let's pretend this is a business, this marriage. I'm like, I would like a job performance review. And I've actually gone to him. I'm like, I need like a job description as a wife. Like, what are your expectations? Because I just want to perform well. Because I thought if I talked to him in those terms, it would connect for him because he's so business minded. So I think, again, everything that you talked about yourself, right? You're a man, you're raised that way. I'm supposed to be the provider. And I don't want to turn into a man-woman thing, but based on, it sounds like we were raised similarly, there's an expectation the man's going to do those things. And as an entrepreneur, you can really lose track of your family when you're in that mode. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for you.
And I think you're right there. I mean, I think I love that you have that scenario there. I think when I presented to my wife my original plan, it sounded like what you just talked about with the whole job description stuff. I wonder actually if that would work well if you're both entrepreneurs. But my wife, even though she has run some businesses, that didn't resonate really well with her. But what I was pleasantly surprised by, I don't know why I was happy about this. I felt a little bad afterwards, but after I posted all those Facebook stories about my personal experience, talking with so many entrepreneurs, I was blown away by how many people were having the exact same problem as me.
Yeah.
So I felt a little better knowing that I wasn't alone. I don't know why I thought I was kind of alone, because there's that whole weird Facebook myth out there. You go on Facebook everyone's like, my wife's the best, or my husband. And I was like,
life's amazing.
I'm not feeling that way.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool going through that process. But again, I think for me, what I'm really disappointed about myself is, my wife told me about that situation at least a year and a half before I even started the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I just chose to be like, I'll deal with it later. Like I took for granted that, hey, we're married and that was our commitment and you're always going to be there.
Yeah.
And you see, obviously, the divorce ratios out there. I just decided, shoot, I really need to take action now. I can't keep putting it off and having such lack of respect for my wife and my family. I need to get the same level of energy that I do with my companies. And what's funny is I was so worried that by me doing this, a company was going to be, $2 million off our goal, because now I was taking an eye off the ball. We actually are 15% more profitable this year. And I definitely attribute a lot of that success because of this process where, that whole silly happy wife, happy life type of thing.
Yeah.
I just find like we have a happier home. We definitely still have our typical family squabbles. I have two preteens.
Girls.
And they're both girls and they're maturing way too fast with Snapchat and all the other things out there. But we're talking through problems so much more healthier that I believe it's because of that process. And so I'm leaving my house feeling like things are in a good place and I'm coming home excited to see my family versus avoiding them and getting on email and doing all the stupid work stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm definitely embracing the whole work-life balance, and I attribute a lot of that success to that process.
Well, good for you, because again, I think there's a lot of people out there who probably have experienced the same exact thing. And I'm like, oh, I'll get to that later. I'll get to that later. I'll get to that later. I've been guilty of that. My husband's been guilty of that. There have been even times where we're like, we're more focused on taking care of our employees than taking care of each other, because you have this responsibility to this other family, because you have these employees who also have families, right? And so as an entrepreneur, you're always worried about, I got to make sure they're all eating and they're all taken care of. And you take your actual family for granted, assuming that they're always going to be there for you. So I think for you, good for you that you didn't let it get too bad, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of divorces that come out of entrepreneurship.
Oh, I know about a ton. For example, I had a chat with a good friend of mine last week who's going through this, and it just really depresses me. And I said, if you could reverse the clock, go back a year, what would you do differently? And he's like, I just think we just have a conversation. Like, it's amazing how many people just keep burying their concerns and it turns into this huge blow up resentment that I think have been easily resolved. We just had a simple conversation around whatever it is, money, sex, whatever the topic may be. And so now, we probably talk so much more now than we ever have, because you just never know what people are thinking. We're not mind readers.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's really healthy to have those kind of, harder conversations.
Gosh, we could go on forever.
Seriously.
I know. But we do have to wrap it up. And I'm going to try to make these two quick questions. One, where do you get your support, mentorship, guidance as a leader? Where do you go for that?
So I do a couple different things. So with me, the way my mind works is very gap focused. So I typically constantly analyze, where am I at today versus where I want to go? And then I figure out, okay, the gaps I have, what do I need to do to solve those? So a couple things that I do. One, I do a ton of reading. I read a lot of books and podcasts and whatnot. A few years ago, I joined the Entrepreneurs Organization. Mm-hmm. So I've been a member there for quite a few years. I've also gotten very involved there by mentoring other smaller businesses, as well as being on the board of EO as well as other companies. Because I'm part of an agency, the agency world is, I think, quite unique. And so I joined a agency mastermind group called Agency Management Institute, AMI, that I meet with other like-minded agency principals every 6 months. And then recently, a good friend of mine from the Entrepreneurs Organization recommended Strategic Coach. So I signed up for that, and I go to my first session in a few weeks. I personally, my big thing is every year I do my personal planning, and I look at those gaps and I figure out what my solution needs to be and how to solve those gaps. And I basically put into my budget kind of a self-help budget. And I typically invest between $50K and $100K every year on all of that kind of work. I just can't do it alone.
Yeah.
I own this company by myself, so I don't have a financial partner in place. So I rely on advisors and mentors and masterminds and other groups to just kind of really have those transparent conversations with, just to get some really good, experience sharing around what could help me kind of solve, that fire or gap at that point in time.
Yeah. A Strategic Coach, is that in Chicago?
Yeah. So,
I have several friends who've gone through it, and I'm from Chicago. So several people have told me about it and they love it.
I'm looking forward to it.
We'll have to keep in touch because I go back and forth to Chicago a lot. So I've actually connected with friends from New York while they're in Chicago.
Oh, great.
So that's great. And I'm speaking in New York to an EO group about how to use improv in their businesses.
Oh, great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm excited about that. We'll talk about that when we're done recording.
Love it.
One last question. This is our wacky question. What kind of animal are you in business and why?
Oh my goodness. No warning of this question.
It was in the document I sent you. It was there.
Oh, that's awesome. I failed that test. I would say a chameleon.
Okay.
Is probably the animal that I would believe my team would say as well. I'm really, really good at adjusting. For example, we could you could join me for 4 sales pitches in one day, and they're all 4 different people.
Yeah.
I've gotten really, really good at putting myself in other people's shoes and saying, okay, how do I need to structure this that makes this of most value to that person and also most easy to understand? Marketers, especially myself and my team, we often speak in this strange language, and a lot of our clients don't understand that, and it overwhelms them and or makes them uncomfortable. And so we always try to word things at the appropriate level. So I would say chameleon is probably a good answer to that question.
I love that. No one's given that answer.
Really?
Yeah, and that's such
I get a prize?
Yeah, I don't know what it is yet, but it'll be something. It'll be a something.
Okay. I'll take it.
That's a great answer because I think when you're in business, you have to be a chameleon. You have to be a chameleon. I'm also a big believer in you have to treat people the way they want to be treated versus how you want to be treated, because we don't all want to be treated the same. So I can't treat you the way I want to be treated because you might not like that. So when you can do that empathy piece and put yourself in other people's shoes and do that chameleon thing, I think that's huge.
I agree.
I love it. If people want to connect with you, learn more about you, buy your book, what are some of the best ways to get a hold of you? I know you've sent me that information. I'll put it in the show notes, but it's always good for people to hear it from your voice.
So I'm extremely active on LinkedIn and Twitter. I spend probably too much time on that, but I get paid for it, so I can justify that. But I would say, LinkedIn, just search Jay Feitlinger, or Twitter. It's probably 2 great ways. You obviously can visit the StringCanInteractive.com website and engage with us there. And then recently I launched a personal website at jayfeitlinger.com. And so I'm going to be doing a bunch of blogging on there starting actually next week, way before this podcast comes out, with the intention of trying to focus on 3 areas: personal, business, and family growth. So I'm basically going to try to blog about once a week and talk about a topic that I'm often hearing about from other entrepreneurs. So those probably would be, I think, the best way. And then obviously all through those various different channels, you can obviously contact me via email or the forums and whatnot.
Great. I see a future podcast for you.
Okay.
I'm just...
I need your help then.
I can help you, but I'm putting that out there for you. I see that, especially with growing that personal website, I see a podcast for you.
Well, let's do it. You're going to help me.
I will help you for sure. There's so many things I'm going to do with you. I feel it.
I love it.
All right. We're going to wrap up the show. I want to thank you, Jay, one more time for being on the Pivotal Leader today. You had so much great stuff to offer, and we definitely went way over half an hour, but I think it was worth it.
That was great. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much. I'm looking forward to hearing this go live.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, everyone, for listening to The Pivotal Leader today. You can find show notes for this episode, including contact information for Jay, on our website at thepivotalleader.com. The Pivotal Leader is a production of Pivot 10 Results, a strategy and training company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results. Remember, you can find our podcast on iTunes, and if you're an iTunes subscriber, please leave a rating or review. Don't forget to email me your questions about employee engagement and customer acquisition at gina@pivot10.com, and we will answer those in upcoming episodes. Again, we thank Jay for chatting with us today. And until next time, if you're feeling stuck in your business, it's probably time to pivot. You've been listening to The Pivotal Leader. To learn more about how to shift your culture and pivot to success, visit pivot10results.com. That's pivot10results.com.